It's just a reunion. My dad lied when I wasn't invited to my brother's engagement party. I posted a ski trip pic. Then my phone exploded with messages from my furious family. Oh, the sting of betrayal. Imagine finding out through a casual Instagram scroll that your own brother is having a huge engagement party, and you, his sister, the one who literally raised him, weren't invited. My innocent ski selfie, meant to capture a moment of peace, somehow ignited a family war that exposed the raw, uncomfortable truth about my place in their lives. Hey everyone, I'm Cassandra, I'm 29, and last spring, my world completely tipped upside down. It all started with an Instagram post from my cousin Angela. She was asking for help choosing a dress for Jason, my brother, and Megan's big engagement bash that very weekend. An engagement party? I blinked, reread it, and then reread it again. No invitation. No phone call. Nothing. My brother was getting married, and I was somehow the only one not in on the secret. When I finally got my dad, Richard, on the phone, he just brushed me off. It's just a reunion, Cassandra. Don't make a big deal out of nothing. Can you believe that? Hurt and totally confused, I decided to go ahead with my planned ski trip instead of confronting them further. I had no idea that posting one innocent ski selfie would cause my entire family to implode. The unbreakable bond. Or so I thought growing up. Jason and I were inseparable. He's 3 years younger than me, but he was my shadow, my confidant, and honestly often my responsibility. Our parents' marriage was, to put it mildly, volatile. Dad was always at his law firm, Mom was deep in community organizations, and Jason and I? We navigated childhood together. I still remember teaching him to ride his bike when he was 7. Skinny knees, Batman Band-Aids. Our parents were nowhere to be found. I ran alongside him for hours, holding his seat, until I finally let go without telling him. His face lit up when he realized he was doing it on his own. "You're the best sister ever, Cass," he'd shouted. Later in middle school, when some bullies started picking on him for his thick glasses and love of science, I stepped in. I was a high school freshman then, and I made it clear, mess with my brother, you deal with me. The bullying stopped. That night, he slipped a thank you note under my door with a drawing of me as a superhero. Our bond was strong. Even as we grew older and found our own friends, we still had our Sunday morning pancake ritual and Friday movie nights. Things started to shift when I moved to Colorado after college for my dream job at a graphic design agency. Jason was still at Penn State. We promised to stay close. And for the first year we did. Weekly video calls. I flew home for his graduation. He even spent a summer with me in Colorado where I taught him to snowboard. But slowly, subtly, the distance began to create a chasm between us. Over the last 2 years our calls became less frequent, his texts shorter, just emojis sometimes. I figured he was just building his own adult life, starting his career, making new friends. Enter Megan. Then came Megan. Jason met her at a work conference about a year ago. She was smart, ambitious, and worked in marketing. In the entire year they'd been together, I'd only met her twice, briefly at Thanksgiving and Christmas. Both encounters were pleasant but superficial. Megan seemed nice enough but a bit reserved around me. She'd ask polite questions about my life, but quickly changed the subject if I brought up any of Jason's childhood stories. After he started dating Megan, Jason became increasingly distant. My calls went to voicemail, and when he did answer, he seemed distracted, always needing to go after a few minutes. Texts about our inside jokes went unanswered. Invitations to visit me in Colorado were met with vague, maybe someday responses. Still, I never ever imagined he'd exclude me from one of the biggest celebrations of his life. We were more than siblings. We were allies, partners in navigating our chaotic family. I thought that bond was unbreakable. The Instagram bomb. It was a regular Tuesday evening in March. I was unwinding after work, scrolling through Instagram, half watching a reality show. Then Angela's post stopped my thumb mid-scroll. A photo of her holding up 2 dresses. Help me decide which one to wear to Jason and Megan's big engagement bash this weekend. My heart pounded. An engagement bash? This weekend? I hadn't heard a thing. I frantically checked my email, my spam, my physical mail, my voicemails. Nothing. Growing uneasy, I called my mom. Elizabeth Matthews is a master at dancing around uncomfortable topics, and this call was no different. "Mom, I just saw Angela's post about Jason's engagement party. Did my invitation get lost?" I tried to sound casual, but a knot was already forming in my stomach. Oh, Cassandra, I was just about to call you, actually, she chirped, her voice pitching higher, the telltale sign of a fib. How are you, sweetheart? How's the weather in Colorado? Mom, the weather's fine. Can we talk about the party? I haven't heard anything about it. A nervous laugh. Well, it was all put together rather quickly. Megan's parents were insistent on having something before her grandmother's hip surgery next month. That still didn't explain why I wasn't invited. I thought Jason had called you about it, she said. You know how he is with these things, always leaving details to the last minute. The knot in my stomach had turned into a heavy stone. So, there is a party, and I'm supposed to be invited? Well, dear, it's just a small gathering, really. Mostly family from both sides getting to know each other. Nothing fancy. Her evasiveness told me everything. I ended the call quickly, promising to talk soon, a hollow escape. Next I called my dad. Richard Matthews was many things, but he never sugar-coated reality. If anyone would give me a straight answer, it would be him. Dad, what's going on with Jason's engagement party? Mom's being weird, and I haven't received an invitation. The sigh on his end of the line was audible. Cassandra, it's just a reunion of sorts. The Henderson family meeting our family. Nothing you need to worry about missing. But Angela is going. And from her post, it sounds like a big deal. Your cousin exaggerates everything. You know that. It's just a dinner at the country club. Megan's father is a member there. So I'm not invited? I pressed, needing to hear it directly. Look, Cassandra, it's not personal. The guest list had to be limited. Just a reunion. Not worth you flying across the country for. Focus on your work out there. That's what matters. The unavoidable truth after hanging up with my father, I went back to social media with a vengeance. More evidence. My Aunt Patricia had her hair done specially for the big event. My teenage cousin Tyler was complaining about wearing a suit for Jason's fancy party. Then the worst discovery. Megan had created a private event page, and someone had tagged it. I couldn't access the full details, but the preview showed Jason and Megan's engagement celebration, with a formal invitation. Design and a guest count that appeared to be well over 100 people. My hands shaking, I called Jason. Straight to voicemail as usual. Hey, just heard about your engagement party this weekend. Call me back when you can. An hour later, a text. Super busy with work and wedding stuff. Talk later. That was it. No explanation, no invitation, not even an acknowledgement of my obvious exclusion. The final blow came when I saw that Tammy Wilson, my high school friend who barely spoke to Jason since graduation, had posted about her excitement to attend Jason Matthews' engagement bash. Not only were extended family members invited, but old acquaintances who weren't even close to my brother made the cut, while I somehow hadn't. By the end of the evening, the truth was unavoidable. My brother was having a major celebration, and I had been deliberately excluded. The brother I had protected, supported, and loved fiercely throughout our childhood had decided I didn't deserve to be there for one of the most significant moments of his adult life. A 4 a.m. confession that night, sleep was impossible. My mind was a washing machine on an endless spin cycle. Hurt, confusion, anger, self-doubt, back to hurt again. Around 2 a.m. I called my best friend Autumn. Forgetting the time difference, it was 4 a.m. in New York. Someone better be dead or giving birth, she mumbled into the phone. Jason is having a huge engagement party this weekend. I choked out, my voice cracking despite my efforts to sound composed. And I wasn't invited. Literally everyone else was. Distant relatives, old high school friends, probably the mailman too, but not me. Autumn was instantly alert. Wait, what? That makes zero sense. You and Jason were always so close. Apparently not anymore, I said, tears silently sliding into my hair. My parents know about it too. Dad literally said it was just a reunion and not worth me flying in for. That's complete bullsh*t. Autumn declared with fierce loyalty. Have you considered this might be Megan's doing? You've only met her, what, twice? The thought had crossed my mind, but hearing Autumn say it gave it more substance. Maybe. At Christmas, I overheard her telling Jason that I seemed too career-focused to ever settle down. Like it was some character flaw. Classic insecurity, Autumn declared. She probably feels threatened by your relationship with Jason. Some women get weird about their partner's female relatives, especially sisters. Remember my cousin Rachel's wedding drama? We talked for nearly an hour, Autumn validating my feelings and helping me process the shock. Before we hung up, she asked about my weekend plans. Actually, I was supposed to go on a ski trip to Breckenridge with some coworkers. I was thinking about canceling to wallow in self-pity instead. Absolutely not. Autumn said firmly. You are going skiing. You are going to have an amazing time while they're all making awkward small talk at some stuffy country club. Living well is the best revenge, Cass. The best revenge. After we hung up, I lay awake, revisiting memories of Jason and me throughout our childhood. The snow fort that lasted until March, him creeping into my room during thunderstorms when he was 10, the tight hug before I drove to Colorado, promising we'd always be close. What had changed? When had I become someone he could so easily exclude? Morning arrived with puffy eyes and a headache, but also a new resolve. Autumn was right. I would go on the ski trip. I would not cancel my life because my family had seemingly canceled me. As I packed my gear that evening, I fought back fresh tears. My favorite ski jacket had been a Christmas gift from Jason 2 years ago. He'd researched the best brands, saved for months. Only the best for my big sis, he'd said. I considered leaving it behind but ultimately packed it. It was, after all, the best ski jacket I owned. The memory of that Christmas just 5 months ago resurfaced. I'd arrived at my parents' house to find Jason and Megan already there, cozied up on the couch. Jason had given me a quick, distracted hug before returning his attention to Megan. Later, I'd gone to the kitchen for water and overheard Megan's voice from the dining room. I think it's sweet that Cassandra is so dedicated to her career, she'd said in a tone that suggested the opposite. Some women just aren't meant for family life. Too independent, you know. Jason says she hasn't had a serious relationship in years. My mother had made some non-committal response, neither agreeing nor defending me. I'd slipped back upstairs without getting my water. A seed of unease planted then was now blooming into painful clarity. As I zipped my suitcase, my phone pinged. A text from my mother. Call me when you can, dear. Dad and I were thinking perhaps we could come visit you next month since you cannot make it this weekend. Cannot make it. As if I had been invited and declined. As if this was my choice. I turned my phone to silent and tucked it into my purse. Tomorrow I would drive to Breckenridge with Dana and Kyle from work. We would spend 3 days skiing, enjoying mountain views, and après-ski drinks by fire pits. I would not spend it checking my phone for explanations that weren't coming, or apologies I wasn't sure I could accept. Altitude and perspective. The drive to Breckenridge early Friday morning was exactly what my wounded spirit needed. As we climbed into the mountains, leaving Denver behind, the majesty of snow-covered peaks and endless blue sky worked its magic. Dana was singing along to 80s rock, Kyle dozing in the back. I felt the knot in my chest loosen with each mile. You seem a million miles away, Dana commented. Everything okay? I considered deflecting with my usual I'm fine. But something about the distance from home and the mountains' perspective made honesty feel safer. Family drama. My brother is having a big engagement party this weekend, and somehow, I wasn't on the guest list. Dana's eyebrows shot up. You've got to be kidding me. I remember how you were always talking about your brother when you first moved here. You two seemed super close. We were, I said, watching the pine trees blur. Things change, I guess. That's seriously messed up, Dana said, shaking her head. Well, their loss is our gain. We're going to have an epic weekend. By the time we checked into our lodge, the family drama felt slightly more distant. Our condo was rustic but comfortable, with a stone fireplace and views of the slopes. We quickly changed and headed out, eager to make the most of the afternoon. The first few runs were exactly what I needed. The exhilaration of speed, the focus required to navigate, the crisp mountain air filling my lungs. For those moments, there was no room for thoughts of Jason or Megan or the party. Only the mountain, my skis, and the next turn. The photo that broke the internet, my family's edition. But as the day wore on, my concentration slipped. A family of 4 sharing a chairlift. Parents with a brother and sister who playfully bickered. Sent a pang through my heart. A group of friends celebrating a birthday at the lodge reminded me of the celebration happening without me on the other side of the country. By our late afternoon run, Dana had noticed my distraction. After a near miss where I barely avoided colliding with a snowboarder, She suggested a break. Okay, spill, she said, once we were seated with hot chocolates at a mountainside cafe. You almost became one with that guy's snowboard back there. What's going on? I told her everything. The discovery of the party, my parents' dismissive responses, the history with Jason, and my suspicions about Megan's influence. That's such garbage, Dana declared after listening intently. And you're sure this party is happening tomorrow night? I nodded, pulling out my phone to show her Angela's latest post. Freshly manicured nails with the caption, "Ready for tomorrow's big bash. Hashtag Jason Megan forever." Well, you know what you should do, Dana said, a mischievous glint in her eye. Show them exactly what they're missing. While they're all stuffed into some boring country club, eating tiny appetizers and making small talk, you are having the time of your life in one of the most beautiful places on earth. She gestured toward the panoramic mountain view. Document it. Post it. Let them see that excluding you didn't ruin your weekend. It made it better. When Kyle joined us, he enthusiastically endorsed Dana's plan. We'll make sure you have the best damn weekend. Their loss entirely. That evening, after a delicious dinner and drinks at a cozy bar with live music, I felt lighter than I had all week. My phone remained blessedly free of family messages, as if the mountains themselves were creating a protective barrier. The next morning dawned clear and perfect. Fresh powder, bluebird skies, and temperatures just cold enough to keep the snow pristine. We hit the slopes early, determined to make the most of the ideal conditions. By midday, we had covered most of the mountain's best runs, and my skiing had found its rhythm again. After lunch, Dana suggested we take the highest lift to the summit for what she promised would be an unforgettable view. She wasn't wrong. Standing at 12,980 feet with the Continental Divide stretching before us like nature's cathedral, I felt simultaneously tiny and infinite. This is the moment, Dana said, pulling out her phone. This is your living my best life photo. I posed at the edge of the lookout point, mountains cascading behind me. My ski jacket, the one from Jason, a bright splash of purple against the snow and sky. The sun hit my face just right, and for the first time in days my smile was genuine. Dana took several shots, then handed me my phone. These are perfect. Absolutely perfect. Looking at the photos, I had to agree. They captured not just the scenery, but a moment of authentic joy. Without overthinking it, I selected the best one and opened Instagram. My fingers hovered over the keyboard before I typed. Sometimes the family you choose is better than the one you were born into. Best weekend ever. Hashtag nor egrets, hashtag living my best life. I hit post, then tucked my phone away. Now, Kyle said, adjusting his goggles, let's show you the secret powder stash the locals told me about. It's going to blow your mind. For the rest of the afternoon I was fully present, embracing every run, every laugh, every moment of mountain magic. As we made our last descent, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't expected to find. That evening, we had reservations at Breckenridge's most acclaimed restaurant. Before heading out, I deliberately turned off my phone. Whatever was happening in Philadelphia could wait. Tonight was for good food, better company, and the family I had chosen. The morning after, notifications galore. Sunday morning arrived with gentle snowfall, and the comfortable muscle ache that comes from 2 full days of skiing. I stretched in bed, enjoying the quiet, momentarily forgetting the family drama that had sent me into the mountains. Then I remembered my phone was still off. With a slight sense of trepidation, I turned it on while padding to the kitchen to start coffee. The cascade of notifications began immediately. So many that my phone froze briefly trying to display them all. 27 missed calls, 42 text messages, numerous voicemails, multiple Instagram and Facebook notifications. My stomach dropped as I scrolled through the names. Mom, Dad, Jason, Angela, Aunt Patricia, Uncle Robert, cousins I barely spoke to, even my grandmother who rarely used her cell phone. The first text I opened was from my mother, sent at 8:47 p.m. Eastern Time. Cassandra, please call immediately. Your post has upset everyone. Next, one from my cousin Angela. OMG, why would you do that? Everyone at the party is talking about your post instead of celebrating J and M. With growing confusion, I clicked on a voicemail from Jason. Timestamp 9:32 p.m. What the actual hell, Cass? I know you're mad about the party, but did you really have to pull this stunt tonight of all nights? Megan is in tears. Mom is upset. Dad is furious. Thanks for making sure my engagement party will be remembered for all the wrong reasons. I sat heavily on the couch, coffee forgotten, as I pieced together what had happened. My innocent ski selfie, posted around 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time, had coincided exactly with the start of Jason and Megan's engagement party on the East Coast. The caption I had written, "Sometimes the family you choose is better than the one you were born into," had been interpreted as a direct attack on the event I had been excluded from. A text from my Aunt Patricia included screenshots of the party. Guests huddled in groups, phones in hand, presumably discussing my post. Another showed Megan looking teary-eyed while Jason spoke animatedly to someone off camera. My father's voicemail was clipped and cold. "Your behavior is completely unacceptable. You have embarrassed this family deliberately. Call me back immediately." Then came a text directly from Megan, the first communication I had ever received from her. "I always tried to be nice to you despite what Jason told me about how selfish and attention-seeking you can be. Thanks for proving him right. Hope your ski trip was worth ruining our special night." The accusation in Megan's text hit like a physical blow. Jason had described me as selfish and attention-seeking. The brother who knew me better than anyone, who had seen firsthand how much of my childhood had been spent looking out for him. That revelation hurt more than the exclusion from the party ever could. Dana emerged from her room, sleep-rumpled but smiling. Her expression quickly changed when she saw my face. "Whoa, what happened? You look like you saw a ghost." "Apparently, I ruined my brother's engagement party with my ski selfie," I said, still scrolling through the barrage. "It seems I created some kind of family crisis." Dana read over my shoulder, her eyes widening. "Holy overreaction, Batman." "All I did was post a vacation photo with a caption that could be interpreted as a dig at my family," I admitted. "But I never expected it would cause this level of drama." "Because it shouldn't have," Dana said firmly. "If they had invited you in the first place, none of this would have happened." As I continued going through messages, I found one from my cousin Tyler that included a video. It showed the moment my post had apparently gone viral within the party. Guests showing each other their phones, whispers spreading across the ballroom, Megan's face crumpling as someone showed her the post, Jason's expression darkening from confusion to anger. The most surprising message came from my grandmother. "Cassandra, I didn't know you weren't invited. That was wrong of them, but your timing could have been better, dear. Call me when you can." Confrontation and revelation. By the time Kyle joined us, I had a clearer picture of what had happened. My post had not just been noticed, it had somehow become the focal point of the entire event. According to various messages, guests had begun taking sides, with some defending my right to enjoy my weekend and others condemning what they saw as deliberate sabotage. "The irony," I said to Dana and Kyle as I made breakfast, "is that I wasn't trying to make any kind of statement. I was just sharing a nice moment from our trip." "But part of you must have known it would get back to them," Kyle suggested gently. I considered his words as I flipped pancakes. "I guess I wanted them to see I was doing fine without them, but I never wanted to hijack their entire party." "You didn't hijack anything," Dana insisted. "They created this situation by excluding you. And then they all overreacted to a simple social media post. That's on them, not you." As we packed up to return to Denver, I wrestled with how to respond to the flood of messages. Part of me wanted to apologize for the unintended consequences. Another part felt indignant that I was being vilified for enjoying my weekend while my family without me. In the end, I sent a simple text to Jason. "I never intended to disrupt your party. My post was about my weekend, not your celebration. We should talk when things calm down." His response came quickly. "Too late for that. The damage is done." The drive back to Denver was substantially quieter than the trip up. As the mountains gradually gave way to foothills and then the city's sprawl, I knew that the real confrontation still lay ahead. My innocent ski selfie had unexpectedly exposed the fault lines in my family relationships, and there would be no going back to pretending they didn't exist. The uncomfortable truths. 3 days passed before I worked up the courage to book a flight to Philadelphia. 3 days of ignored calls from my parents, terse text exchanges with extended family, and complete silence from Jason. 3 days of replaying childhood memories, examining recent interactions, and trying to understand how we had arrived at this breaking point. My boss Julia was surprisingly understanding. Family stuff, I had explained vaguely. She simply nodded and said, "Take what you need. The Anderson project can wait." The flight gave me 5 hours to prepare. I rehearsed what I would say, anticipating their responses, steeling myself against the accusations. Still, nothing could have fully prepared me for the ice-cold reception that awaited me at my parents' house. My mother opened the door with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Cassandra, we weren't expecting you. I thought it was time we talked face to face," I said, wheeling my small suitcase into the foyer of my childhood home. Everything looked exactly the same. My father emerged from his study, reading glasses perched on his nose. "So you decided to show up after all." "I was never given the chance to show up for the party," I replied, determined to start with honesty. "Let's not do this in the entryway," my mother said, ever conscious of appearances. "I'll make tea." Seated in the living room with untouched tea cooling, the silence stretched uncomfortably until my father finally spoke. "Your behavior was completely inappropriate, Cassandra. Whatever your feelings about the party, to publicly embarrass your brother and his fiancée was unacceptable." "I didn't intend to embarrass anyone," I said, working to keep my voice level. "I posted a photo from my ski trip. I didn't mention Jason or Megan or the party at all." "Don't be deliberately obtuse," my father scoffed. "Your caption made your intentions perfectly clear." "My caption was about appreciating the friends who were actually including me in their lives," I countered. "The real question is why my own brother would have a major celebration and deliberately exclude me from it." My mother fidgeted with her teacup. "It was a complicated situation, Cassandra. Megan's family is very traditional, very particular about how things should be done. What does that have to do with inviting your son's only sister to his engagement party?" Another uncomfortable silence. My parents exchanged glances, having one of those wordless conversations long married couples perfect. "We should wait for Jason," my mother finally said. "He and Megan are coming for dinner at 6. The 3 hours until dinner were excruciating. I unpacked in my old bedroom, now a guest room with only a few remnants of my teenage years. I napped fitfully, then showered and changed, bracing myself for round 2. When the doorbell rang at 6 sharp, I was helping my mother chop vegetables in the kitchen, attempting to normalize an inherently abnormal situation. Jason entered first, his expression guarded. Megan followed, clutching his arm as if for support. Neither looked particularly happy to see me. "Cassandra," Jason said stiffly, "I didn't know you'd be here." "Seems to be a pattern lately," I replied immediately, regretting the passive-aggressive tone. The breaking point dinner was a masterclass in uncomfortable small talk. My mother filled silences with questions about the weather in Colorado. My father inquired about ski conditions. Megan offered monosyllabic responses. Jason barely looked at me, focusing intently on his plate. It wasn't until my mother brought out dessert that Jason finally addressed the elephant in the room. "Why did you do it, Cass? Why did you post that right when our party was starting?" "I had no idea what time your party started," I said. "Honestly, I wasn't exactly included in the planning details." "But you knew it was that day," he pressed. "You must have known your post would cause drama." "I knew you were having a party I wasn't invited to," I acknowledged. "But I was having a genuinely good moment in Breckenridge and shared it." "Not everything is about you, Jason." Megan made a small derisive sound. "Right. Pure coincidence." Something in her tone, the dismissiveness, the subtle mockery, broke the last of my restraint. "Why was I not invited, Megan? I would really like to hear your explanation." Her eyes widened slightly, then narrowed. She glanced at Jason, clearly expecting him to field the question. "It was a difficult decision," Jason began, his corporate voice emerging, "with venue limitations and budget considerations." "Stop," I interrupted. "There were over 100 people there. Second cousins we haven't seen in years were there. Mom's book club friends were there. Don't insult me by pretending this was about space or money." Jason's professional facade cracked. "Fine. You want the truth? Megan didn't want you there. She feels you've never made an effort with her, that you judge her lifestyle choices, that you were constantly competing with her for my attention." And after seeing how self-centered your post was, can you blame her? The room fell silent. My mother gasped softly. My father suddenly became very interested in rearranging his napkin. And you? I asked, looking directly at my brother. Did you not want me there either? Jason had the decency to look uncomfortable. I wanted peace. Megan was stressed enough about planning the perfect party. I didn't want to add to that by insisting on inviting someone she wasn't comfortable with. So you knew, I said slowly, the full weight of the betrayal settling on me. You knew I was being excluded, and you chose to go along with it. It's not that simple, Cassandra. Actually, it is exactly that simple, I countered, turning to my parents. And you too? You're okay with your daughter being the only immediate family member, not invited to her brother's engagement party. My mother looked down at her half-eaten cheesecake. We didn't think it was our place to interfere with Jason and Megan's guest list. We thought it best not to make waves, my father added. Given the distance and your busy schedule, it seemed practical. Practical. I repeated, the word tasting bitter. How practical of you all to decide I was disposable. How practical to pretend I don't exist when it's inconvenient to include me. No one said you were disposable, Jason protested. No one had to say it. Your actions made it perfectly clear. I stood up, no longer able to sit at the table pretending we were having a normal family dinner. For the record, I have made every effort with Megan despite only meeting her twice. I have never judged her lifestyle choices. I barely know what they are because you have shared so little about your relationship with me. And as for competing for your attention, I have spent the last year trying to maintain even a basic level of communication with you, while you have become increasingly distant. Megan's face flushed. Jason told me how you always try to one-up everyone. How you have to be the center of attention. I turned to my brother, genuinely shocked. Is that really how you describe me to her? Your sister who practically raised you when mom and dad were too busy with their own lives? Who defended you against bullies? Who spent her childhood making sure you never felt as overlooked as I did? Jason had the grace to look ashamed. I never said those exact words. But you didn't correct her when she formed that impression? I pressed. You let her believe I'm some attention-seeking drama queen. And then use that as justification to exclude me from your life. You're being melodramatic right now, my father interjected. No, Dad. For once, I am standing up for myself instead of accepting the family narrative that my feelings don't matter. A step toward healing, I looked around the table at each of them in turn. I have spent my entire life being the reasonable one. The one who doesn't make waves. The one who puts everyone else's needs before my own. And where has that gotten me? Excluded from my own brother's engagement party, and then vilified for daring to enjoy my weekend anyway. I walked to the door, grabbing my purse from the hook in the hallway. I'm not going to apologize for posting that selfie. If anything, I'm grateful it exposed what was already true. That I am an afterthought in this family. Someone to be accommodated when convenient and discarded when not. Cassandra, don't leave like this, my mother pleaded. I'll be at the Marriott downtown if anyone decides they want to have an honest conversation, I said, my hand on the doorknob. But I'm done pretending everything is fine when it clearly is not. As I walked out into the cool Philadelphia evening, I felt something unexpected. Not just hurt or anger, but a strange sense of liberation. For the first time, I had refused to accept the role assigned to me in my family's drama. I had spoken my truth regardless of the consequences. And despite the pain of the confrontation, that felt like a victory of sorts. The Marriott hotel room became my sanctuary for the next 3 days. I extended my stay, worked remotely, and waited to see if any member of my family would reach out for the honest conversation I had invited. The silence stretched from hours into days, confirming what part of me had already known. Real change would not come quickly or easily. On the third evening, as I was contemplating extending my stay yet again, or simply returning to Colorado, there was a knock at my door. Through the peephole, I saw Jason standing alone in the hallway, hands in his pockets, looking uncertain. I opened the door but didn't immediately invite him in. Jason, can we talk? He asked, his voice lacking the defensive edge it had carried at our parents' house. I stepped aside, allowing him to enter. He took in the hotel room, the laptop, the room service tray, the view of the Philadelphia skyline. How did you know where to find me? I asked. Mom told me. She said you mentioned the Marriott. He sat tentatively on the edge of the desk chair. I should have called first, probably. But you're here now, I agreed, sitting on the bed. We looked at each other for a long moment, 29 years of shared history hanging between us. I'm sorry, he finally said, the words emerging with visible effort. I handled everything badly. The party, your exclusion, the aftermath, all of it. I nodded, accepting his apology but waiting for more. I never described you to Megan the way she suggested, he continued. But I also never corrected her when she formed negative impressions of you. That was wrong of me. Why? I asked simply. Why let her believe those things? Why exclude me? What happened to us, Jason? He sighed deeply, rubbing his face with his hands. I got caught between loyalties. Megan, she comes from this perfect-seeming family. Parents still madly in love after 30 years. Sunday dinners every week. Family vacations where no one argues. I wanted to fit into that world so badly. And I reminded you of our decidedly imperfect family. Something like that, he admitted. Plus, whenever I mentioned you, she would get this look. She never outright said she didn't want you around. But I could tell she felt threatened by our relationship, by our history. So you chose the path of least resistance, I said, understanding even as the hurt remained. I told myself it was temporary, that once she got to know you better, things would improve naturally. But instead, I just kept you both at a distance from each other, which only made it worse. He looked up at me, his expression earnest. I never meant for it to go this far. When the party planning started, I assumed you'd be invited. By the time I realized Megan and her mother hadn't included you on their draft guest list, invitations were already being addressed. And you said nothing. I told myself it was too late to change things without creating drama, that you would understand. He gave a humorless laugh. I was a coward, Cass. I was afraid of rocking the boat with Megan and her family, so I sacrificed my relationship with you instead. The honesty was refreshing, even as it confirmed my worst fears. I would have expected that from anyone else, Jason, but not from you. I know, he said quietly. I broke your trust and then I blamed you for reacting to being hurt. We talked for hours that night, peeling back layers of misunderstanding, addressing the distance that had grown between us, not just geographically but emotionally. I learned that Megan had indeed felt intimidated by the stories Jason told of our close childhood bond, fearing she could never measure up to the sister who knew all his history, all his inside jokes, all his vulnerabilities. She comes from a family where siblings are cordial, but not especially close, Jason explained. She didn't understand our dynamic, and instead of trying to, she just wanted to minimize it. The road to rebuilding 2 weeks after I returned to Colorado, my parents called. The conversation was difficult, full of long-held patterns resurfacing and being addressed for perhaps the first time. My mother cried when I described how overlooked I had often felt as a child. My father, never comfortable with emotional discussions, nevertheless admitted that they had failed me in this situation. We should have stood up for you, my mother said. When we realized you weren't on the guest list, we should have said something. We were wrong, my father added simply. It was perhaps the first time I had ever heard him admit fault without qualification. The most surprising development came a month later when I received an email from Megan. It was long, thoughtful, and clearly difficult for her to write. I owe you an apology, it began. I allowed my insecurities to drive a wedge between you and Jason, and then I blamed you for the consequences of my actions. She explained her background. How her parents had carefully curated the image of a perfect family while hiding significant problems. How she had grown up believing that real families didn't have conflicts or complications. When Jason talked about your relationship, it scared me. It seemed so much more real and deep than anything I had experienced with my own siblings. Instead of admiring that, I felt threatened by it. Her email ended with a request to start fresh, to build a relationship based on mutual respect, rather than competition or insecurity. It was more than I had expected, and exactly what was needed to begin healing. The road to rebuilding trust was neither short nor straight. There were setbacks. A tense Thanksgiving where old patterns tried to reassert themselves, A Christmas where Megan's family's formality clashed with the new honesty our family was attempting. But there was progress too. Jason and I established a weekly video call that became sacred time for both of us. I made a point of reaching out to Megan directly rather than always going through my brother. My parents began making regular visits to Colorado, discovering that they actually enjoyed hiking in the mountains and the laid-back atmosphere of Denver. A wedding, a revelation. A future 6 months after the engagement party debacle, I stood beside Jason at his wedding, officially as Megan's bridesmaid, but unofficially as my brother's steadfast supporter, just as I had always been. Before the ceremony, he hugged me tightly and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I deserved it." During the reception, Megan sought me out for a private moment. "I wanted you to know," she said, "that I understand now what Jason was trying to tell me all along, that having you as a sister-in-law is not a threat to our marriage, but a gift to our family." As I flew back to Colorado the day after the wedding, I reflected on the journey of the past year. The exclusion from the engagement party had been painful, but it had forced conversations that were long overdue. It had required all of us to examine patterns and assumptions that had gone unquestioned for too long. Families are complicated, messy things. They can hurt us more deeply than anyone else because they know exactly where our vulnerabilities lie. But they can also heal in ways that surprise us, if we are brave enough to speak our truths and patient enough to listen to theirs. The selfie that had caused such drama still sits in my Instagram feed. I chose not to delete it, not out of spite, but as a reminder. A reminder that sometimes the most painful moments can lead to the most necessary growth. A reminder that we all deserve to be seen, to be included, to be valued by those who claim to love us. And a reminder that standing up for yourself doesn't have to mean losing the people who matter. Sometimes it's the only way to truly find them again. If you have ever felt excluded or overlooked by your own family, I hope my story gives you courage. The courage to speak your truth, to set boundaries, and to believe that real relationships can survive honesty. In fact, they cannot thrive without it. Thank you for listening to my story. Please leave a comment sharing a time when you had to stand up for yourself with family. We can all learn from each other's experiences. And if this story resonated with you, hit the like button, subscribe to hear more real-life stories, and share with someone who might need to know they are not alone in navigating complicated family dynamics. Remember, sometimes the most painful moments lead to the most beautiful transformations.